Joining me this week is Dr. Cindy Rask from Bespoke Dental. Cindy, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. How's your week coming along so far?
It's been good. It's been a busy week.
Nice.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, what's been taking up most of your mental space lately then?
Well, for the practice. How to grow and, how to continue the growth. Yeah.
If you had to pinpoint one specific thing in the practice that you're like, I'm thinking about this a lot within growth or within anything, what would it be?
So I would really like to be able to make same-day crowns. So I've really been trying to figure out if it makes sense to bring in a printer.
Okay, so how are you kind of like thinking about that when it comes to making sense?
I want more control over, I was having a lot of issues with the previous lab, and I went to an iTero training in Spear, and I learned how much control you can have over your own crowns, and also we've had several patients come in and say, oh, I wish you offered same day, it would be so convenient. And I started doing my research around the area, and not really a lot of dentists in this area offer same day crowns. So I feel like from a marketing perspective, it would be great. And also as well as the control that you have, you're making your own crowns and not having to worry about temps falling off and all of these other things that come with fabricating them with a lab.
So then what's the deciding point right now where you're like,
Money.
Why haven't you pulled the trigger? Okay, money, yeah.
It's expensive.
It is. I think I was on the episode with Andy Brito. He talks about how he just put a lab inside his in-house lab, I want to say.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So you really do have to wait
it's
out.
a big one. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Well, with that, when you think about ownership today, because you've been open for how long?
Next week on the 3rd will be our 1st year anniversary.
Oh, wow. Happy anniversary.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Okay. Interesting. Wow. So when you think about ownership today, what feels fundamentally different compared to earlier seasons?
Oh, gosh. I've learned so much this year. I mean, it really has been like a crash course. And I feel like ownership feels different today. But, when I started, there was so much I didn't know, even though I was listening to so many podcasts, I was reading so many books. I was like, okay, I think I can take this on. And until you're in it, you realize there's so much you don't know. There's so many different factors, things that maybe for somebody else was easier. It turns out to be a real obstacle for you. It's just about, I think, your own journey. For everybody, it's different. And then you compare yourself so much, right? When you're listening to other stories and you're like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing different? And then you just have to accept it. It's like, this is not yours. Yours is going to be a different path. So yeah, I've learned a lot, staffing. I've learned a lot about insurance. I've learned a lot, about marketing. So I feel more confident today about being a business owner, but there's still so much that, I'm learning day to day.
Let's pinpoint it. What parts of your practice now feel calmer and more predictable, even if they're still challenging?
Staffing. I finally have a team that I'm really happy with, and I think they're happy too. And we found a flow, and we're all trying to serve the same purpose. So that has felt a lot better. And it also, I think, is helping the practice grow, because when patients come, they can feel if there's tension, if the flow just doesn't feel right. And I think when everybody's in sync and feeling in the same, direction, it just makes a different experience for everybody.
So how'd you get that to happen?
A lot of trial and error. And honestly, some people have just landed in our office by luck, after several trials and changes. And I think that I just ran into really good people lately. And I'm like, oh God, please, let's just stay together.
Yeah.
So that's been, really nice to have a team that I feel like this feels right.
Yeah. Were you hiring, or was it on Indeed and everything like that? Or
we tried different places. I tried Indeed, and I've also tried, a lot of my good staff has come from Dental Post. That's a really good area to look for people. But yeah, most of them have come from Dental Post. Indeed, we just have a lot of people apply, and a lot of them don't meet any of the requirements that you want. So then it becomes a lot of filtering through those applications, a lot of work.
How big is your team right now?
It's 5 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you can let me know, when would you say you now are like, we got the flow right?
It started to happen sometime in November.
So was that because of the people you hired or the systems you put into place? Or if you don't mind me asking, Cindy, what to you is the flow feels right? What does that look like?
When you want to come into work and you feel like you vibe with the team, people are happy to be here, they're proactive about things. It just feels different. Like I had a completely different team when I started. And, it's part of the growing phase. I mean, there were people that didn't fit into the atmosphere that I wanted for my practice or the vision that I wanted, right? Core values are very important. So I think sticking to the core values, when I realized that somebody wasn't part of those core values, making the decision to let that person go because, they just didn't fit into the vision of the practice, making those decisions, I think at the end of the day helped to build where I'm at now. Again, I just feel like we all have the same goal. It's kind of maybe not a great answer, but it feels different. Like when we work together and things are going well and, I don't have any fear of going into an op and working with my dental assistant, like that changes everything, right?
Yeah. Interesting. So rewind a little bit. If you could let me know, how did it go the first time you had to let someone go? And what would you do differently, if anything?
That was tough. So I had somebody that I had to let go. It just wasn't the right fit for the culture that I wanted to build. So it was hard for me to make that decision. And really, I should have done it sooner. I hear that a lot from people, like, you got to do it sooner. And I kept thinking that maybe it was, training and talking things out. And unfortunately, then I realized that some things you just can't teach people, right? Like, we are in a very customer service field. That's one of our biggest goals here, is for people to have a different experience. And you need to have people that buy into that want to make patients feel like they're special, or that they're coming into this office and that we stand out from other offices for a reason.
Gotcha. So I guess the things you would do differently is like you would try to let them go sooner.
Probably, yes, I make that decision sooner because as well, a lot of mistakes were being made during that time as well. And we were losing patients, and how important that is. And another thing that I learned as well is like, you have to really be involved in a lot of things at the beginning to make sure that your systems are actually being followed through, because sometimes I wanted to give people the flexibility and the freedom and not be like overseeing everything. And then I realized a few months later that we had made a lot of mistakes that also cost us, 6 months later, like recares. We were following through with really rescheduling people. And I was thinking that this was just something that was being done, by the front and the back. And yeah, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, we're not rescheduling anybody. So where that hits is like 6 months into the practice, right? When you don't have any recares on there, or you have maybe one or two. You saw 30 patients your first month, and now you're like, wait a minute, why is my schedule so empty? I have like maybe 5 recares, right?
Yeah.
And getting people back on the schedule is, once they leave, very difficult. I've learned that the hard way. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So then that was the situation. If you don't mind me asking, how can we tell it's like, I should have let them go sooner? Obviously, looking ahead, you're like thinking I should have let them go sooner. But in the moment, instead of thinking like, maybe I'm just not a good leader, maybe I need to, you know what I mean? Like hold on to them,
Many
guide
times
them.
I thought that, yeah. I mean, because I do believe that I am supposed to be the leader in the office. And a lot of times I tried to take a step back and think maybe it's training, or maybe it's expectations, setting expectations clearer. But then when I was doing that and I was like, okay, I'm setting my expectations clear, I'm doing the protocols that I need to be followed. And then when, somebody says to me, oh, I don't have time to look at those checklists, then it's like, now I know that that's not a me problem.
They told you that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cindy. Yeah, I totally would have. That's a whole nother situation, right? Okay, that's good. Good, valuable lesson. So you mentioned the flow is good when they abide to the core values. So what are the core values?
One of them is working in a team, right? It's
Mhm.
very important for us to be able to work with each other and have that mentality that this is not only my job, right? That everybody plays a part. I've worked in offices where I hate that, oh, I'm front desk, so I can't do this. That's not my job. So I've made it very clear, like, I don't expect you to do every single job in this office, but also as a startup, I can't have a team for everything, right?
Yeah.
So making sure that everybody understands that sometimes we have to help, and that's just part of it. If we're in the back and we're slammed, then my front can come back and, help us with sterilization. Not, this isn't my job, or in the back, if my front needs to do something, then they can come and step in and answer the phone or take care of things, so that she can go wherever she needs to do, like teamwork, continuing education, like constantly learning. I think that's fundamental. I feel like if we're not learning, we're
Mhm.
not growing. And if we don't understand that we have to continue learning, sphere is a big one for me right now. So I love taking them because every time I go, I feel like I learn a little bit more and I become a better dentist. And I realize how much I don't know. When I talk to all of these dentists that have so much, experience and so many years, and I think it's great. It makes you feel like you're growing, you're moving towards that goal that you have, right? The kind of person that you want to be or the kind of practitioner that you want to be. And I feel like, at least in this dental office, I want people to feel like we're all growing, right? There's always something that we can learn. So I want people that are hungry to learn, that think that that's valuable, that want to go to, right now we have a conference coming up in Hinman, and I take my team to Hinman because I feel like it's not only about me learning, it's not only about me growing, right? I want my team to also feel empowered and feel like they want to grow too, and that they're learning valuable experiences here.
Yeah. And that also makes the team feel like you care. You know what I mean? I think that kind of goes back to the first core value you stated where like, hey, if you're saying that's not my job, honestly, when it comes down to it, like a bird's eye view, it's like, just care. If the trash is full, like care enough to take it out. Like you don't have to be like, that's not my job. You're not below it kind of a thing, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Integrity is another one, right? Knowing, owning our mistakes as well. I feel like a lot of times I've had to learn how to step back when we make a mistake and it's like, okay, this is a learning experience. We need to learn from this. It's not a I got you moment. It's not like, oh, why'd you do that? It's become more of like, all right, let's learn from this. How can we not make these same mistakes? And owning that, hey, I made this mistake. Because so many things here are so critical to be honest about, right? And I don't want people to feel like it's a got you moment, right? It's because if you didn't sterilize things properly and the sterilizer didn't work, we need to know because we have a responsibility for our patients and each other, right? So that's also a big one for us.
Interesting. Okay. So if you could, Cindy, take us back to like a season where something went wrong, right? Take us back to a season where ownership felt heavier than it should have. Like, how did that weigh on you day to day? How did it show up day to day? What parts of the business to you were like technically working, but still felt really fragile underneath?
I think maybe at the beginning was not setting my expectations clear enough, like what I expect from each position, and then getting upset when things weren't being done a certain way, right? That in my mind, it's very clear, this is the way I want it to flow, but then not giving my team the training that they needed or being very specific about what it was that I expected. And I had to learn to take a step back and again, look at myself as a leader and understand that I can't expect people to do things if I'm not giving them the proper training or we're not having meetings to talk about these things and how we want certain things to flow, right?
Gotcha.
Like the patient experience, right? I can't have a patient experience if I don't have it really like outlined what the patient experience and then explain to every single team member how they're involved in that patient experience, right? Like, yeah, the patient experience sounds great, but if I'm not verbalizing, if I'm not, really writing these things down, what are the important points? I can't expect people to read my mind. And at the time, I can't get upset when my patient experience isn't the way that I want it if I'm not, being clear enough with what my goals and what my vision are.
How did you come to that realization where you're like, I'm not being specific enough instead of like, you're not getting it kind of a thing?
I heard somebody talk about this book, Extreme Leadership.
Extreme ownership, yeah.
Ownership, yeah. And how everything is always your fault.
Yeah.
And honestly, that kind of stuck with me. And I was like, you know what? Instead of blaming other people, I want to take ownership of that and like, no, how can I grow or how can I get better? What am I doing wrong? And of course, it's not always me doing something wrong, but trying to be critical about really like, it's not always the other people. Some people are just, you're not doing really what you're supposed to be doing or what you think you're supposed to be doing. So I think that when I started losing some of my team members, it made me go back and really take a look at myself and what my expectations were and how I was communicating these expectations. And I think that I just try to make it really clear now of what's important to me, why it's important to me. That's another thing, right? Like explaining why, then people understand a little bit more. Why is this important? Why do we want to do this? And I think that that's really changed the dynamic. Not just like, I just want this amazing patient experience, right? And not being clear about what that means and why it's important.
Yeah, understanding the whys. So then, if you don't mind me asking, how many employees have you, I guess, like let go or used to be there?
I think we've lost like 5.
Did you let them all go or?
Some of them left because they said that they had other stuff going on, or
Mm.
my first one that left was because she felt like this wasn't the place for her. And that was totally okay because I felt it too, so we were both on the same page. But let go. I've only actually had to let go of one.
Okay. With the employees, the 5, where can you say like they probably still would be here if I guess took ownership? Or no, none of them.
Maybe like 2 of them.
Okay, so what was the scenario there where you're like, maybe if I would have handled it this way?
I can give you an example. Like I had a team member that I was training from scratch and I loved her. She was great with the patients. Like she was a great chairside assistant, not so much in skills, but really like with the patient experience. And that's one of my biggest things. I feel like people can learn all the other stuff, but it's just like you can't train to be nice and all that stuff, right? She was in a situation where she wanted to get some partial dentures for her mom, and I was not clear enough. And I didn't ask any questions. And I just supposed that, she would be just like a patient and she would pay her fees and that would be that. Fast forward, she came in, she got the scan, and then I saw the whole bill get right off. Yeah, I asked my front desk and she was like, oh, she told me that you had okayed her writing all of it off. And I was like, no, I didn't. So
Mhm.
what I learned from that, she ended up quitting because, like I explained to her, I give discounts to spouses, but she didn't have a spouse. And she thought that I should honor her family member instead of the spouse. And that made me realize, okay, maybe I wasn't clear enough on this. Maybe I should have been clear enough. I should have asked questions from the beginning when she said she wanted to bring in the patient and get the scan. And again, I just supposed, right? I just supposed that it would just be like a normal, but you can't suppose. I've
Mm.
learned, right? You can't suppose because you just can't read other people's minds and you just don't know. You got to ask questions. And I think maybe I felt bad about asking the questions and I shouldn't have, right? I should just really have been like, hey, how is this going to be handled? And reminded her of the policies that she signed in the handbook and so on. And she was just discontent after that. I even took a step back and I told her, you know what? I'll honor the lab fee. I need you to pay the lab fee. And she didn't even want to do that. So then I was like,
So did she pay anything?
she did. She ended up paying
Uh,
me because I was like, look, I'm not going to just disregard the lab fee, right? So she ended up quitting.
like
And
immediately after or?
yeah, like the day after she
Oh,
came in,
wow.
her letter of resignation, she said that she didn't feel appreciated. That was hard. I really liked her and I had worked with her. She had been one of my first ones that had been with me since we opened. And I was training her and she was really getting really good. But then that was disappointing. But again, I thought I should have been more clear.
I can totally see that. But did she see the struggle throughout the whole time? You know what I mean? As far as like when you opened up the practice, or maybe even she was hired before, I don't know. But like she
Yeah.
was there throughout the whole time. That's what I mean by the struggle, like the startup process.
Yeah, I don't think some people understand really what's going on behind, because
Yeah.
people are really looking at your numbers. And then that's another thing that I've changed as well. I share my numbers with my team because they need to know, right? Because especially like now that we're getting busier, it sounds like there's so many like, yeah, we're doing great. But I mean, there's so much behind that they don't know, like overhead, what the cost of rent is,
Hmm.
all of these things. So obviously, I don't go into all of those details, but what is our goal? What is our production goal? What is our collection goal? And how far we are from that. And I try to make them understand, that this is part of how the lights stay on.
Yeah.
That is important because for a long time, a lot of my team at that time did not really understand the sacrifice that you're making when you open up a startup and how you're in a lot of debt.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, your loan was how much?
My loan was like 803,000.
Okay. And you went with which bank?
Provide.
Okay. Why'd you
Yeah.
go provide?
At that time, they were the ones that were offering me the most. And it was between that and Bank of America. And I was reading reviews and stuff like that. And people weren't crazy about Bank of America. And I ended up choosing Provide really because of they were the easiest to go at that time.
Interesting right now that and we'll dive back into that, sharing the numbers with the team. But if we can rewind a little bit, you've been mentioning your patient experience a lot. So what are some like unique things that you are doing in your patient experience where you're like, this is us, this is bespoke?
So I can't take credit for some of these things. I mean, most of these things are just like I've just taken from other offices and I'm like, oh, this is really cool, And like listening to a lot of how new startups are doing podcasts and stuff like that. So I didn't come up with any of this. But one of the things that we do is we have a coffee machine at the front and we have drinks and we have like snacks and stuff like that. That's the first part, right? We then give them a comfort menu where they can circle the things that they want. So we offer Netflix, we offer like noise canceling headphones, blankets, stress balls. So they have that option. They can also connect their noise canceling headphones to their phones if they want to listen to music. So we give them all those options and then they come to the back and we always have two screens. We have the screen on top when they lay down, they can watch their Netflix. The screen on the front is always going to be for like the x-rays and stuff. And so that they can see it from there. But there's always a welcome screen that says, welcome, we've prepared this room just for X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the, personalized experience parts.
Nice. Okay. Where do you feel your team had the hardest time encapsulating a moment in the patient experience?
Oh my God, the Netflix stuff has been hard.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, how so?
It's one of my, and it's probably dumb, but it's one of my pet peeves when I walk into the op and the screen on the computer is on there, like a sleep screen, right?
Yeah.
Like, why? Just put on any show. I always tell them renovation shows or baking shows or, things like that you could just run there because some people will tell you, no, they're not interested. But when they lay down, it's nice to just have something that, is not the drill here and, all that water and stuff like that. And sometimes I also tell them, because I do it myself, is patients will say no. And if I have to walk out of the room, I'll just tell them, hey, I'm going to give you the remote and I'm going to lay you back and you're free to choose whatever. And you'll come back and they'll actually be watching something.
Yeah.
So trying to get them into that, hey, just offer it. And if you have to walk out of the room, then, just give them the remote, give them the headphones, walk out, lay them back. And I promise you, most of them will take advantage of that. And they do. And of course, sometimes we get caught up and we're busy and we're running out and in and out of the room. So then I can understand that maybe they don't have time to put on the Netflix and stuff. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that has been hard to be consistent with.
Interesting. What do the patients kind of tell you in the reviews? You're almost at 100, I want to say, right? Reviews? Yeah. Which is fantastic. What do they tell you in the reviews or in person? Like, hey, this is what we really like about the practice, besides the people.
I think that they because we have heard that we're so transparent. We really try to be as transparent as possible with the pricing. If we're not in network, we'll usually explain to them we're not in network. Like Delta patients, we're not in network with Delta patients, but we'll always tell them we can get you a pre-estimate. You'll know how much you'll have to pay to come and see us. And a lot of them choose that. So that's worked out and they appreciate that because we can get them a pre-estimate. That's the nice thing about Delta. Most of them, you can get a pre-estimate right on the spot. So you know exactly how much they're going to have to pay out of pocket and how much Delta will pay. So it's very advantageous and people like that because we're not lying to them. We're not telling them, oh yeah, we're a network and then, we'll submit for you. And then they realize that we're not. We try to be as honest about it as possible. And yes, we lose some patients, but a lot of patients, as long as they don't have to pay out of pocket, they'll come and see us. Another thing that they do some people love the Netflix. Some people love being able to lay back and watch that. And some people just not. So it depends, some people have loved the coffee when they leave, and they want a coffee to go and they love that part. Mm-hmm. So it's really a mix of people. There's not really one thing that people have said, oh, we love this.
Okay, so the transparency, the coffee, yeah, I would say if I was a patient going through your office, I could see how if I were to lay down or sit down and you just see the screensaver of the computer, right? Or the home screen, how that could interrupt almost the luxury feeling or the feng shui of yeah, I'm at a practice. I forgot I'm at a dental office, right? Kind of a thing.
And also because what I try to explain to my team is that I don't want people to think we're lying to them. We're offering all these things and we're saying come for dentistry and stuff like that. And then they come in and we don't have these things. It just seems wait a minute, they didn't offer me that. Or last time they did, but this time they didn't. We have to be consistent about it.
So then let's fast forward where you talked about sharing numbers with the team. When did that start happening? And was the trajectory almost immediate where you saw the unity toward a goal happen better, or how did that look?
Yeah, actually, this is going to be very vulnerable. But for people that are listening and want real experiences of things that actually happen, not so great. There was a month where we were not doing really great and it was very scary. And I sat my team down and I told them, like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we need in order to keep the lights on. Otherwise, we need to be aware that this is not looking great. And I felt a change almost instantly. Everybody was working towards that same goal. And ever since I've been vulnerable with my team in that sense, I feel like it's just gone up from there.
I like that. So, Cindy, what month was that where you had to sit them down?
That was in October. Yeah.
Hey, October.
Yeah. A lot of things were happening. September and October were one of our worst months. But I think the time of year was bad. But I was also switching marketing companies. So I didn't know how much that could affect us while my marketing company was transitioning. So yeah, I started to panic in October when I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not good. So yeah, we sat down and like I said, everybody was then like, okay, we have to make sure we're asking people to, refer, and we're asking for reviews, and we got to make sure that everybody has a great experience. And again, after that conversation, things just really started to pick up.
What made this decision uniquely hard for you as far as like sitting down and, hey guys, this is it?
It's a very difficult position to tell your team, yeah, we are not doing great, but I felt like they needed to know, because worst case scenario, right? If you got to close, you don't want to like, hey, something could have been done, but I didn't say anything, and because I was ashamed or embarrassed, or it was very difficult for me to accept that this is the direction that we were going, So I felt like I had to make that decision so that they could also be aware that every single thing that we were doing from that moment on was vital to keep our practice open and vital to see if we can turn the office around.
Okay. Why didn't you tell them that in September?
Because I was hopeful that in September, you know how they say September, right?
Okay, yeah.
I was like, okay, maybe this is the area. And that's another thing that has been kind of interesting. All areas are different. So it was our first year open. I wasn't sure about the trends. I wasn't like aware is this an area where September sucks, or is this an area where the summer slows down? And it is. Summer slows down. So now I'm more aware of it for this year and I can plan ahead. But last year was kind of like a crash. Trial. So there was a lot of, like I said, learning lessons and trying to figure that out. So I was hopeful. I had a really good August, and September I was like, okay, no, it'll just be hopefully just a bad month. And then October just continued to like go worse than September. So then that's where I was worried that it was just our office. Luckily, I did talk to another, I have built relationships with dentists around my area, specialists. Mm-hmm. And one of them down the street, she was like, no, it's not you. October has been very slow for a lot of people. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a little bit better, but it's not helpful.
Do you... Yeah. I was going to say, do you recommend doing that? I mean, there's something where it's like, how they say misery loves company kind of thing, where you're like, guys, is it just me or is it everybody doing pretty bad? And when they say everybody, you're like, oh, thank you. Like, and it doesn't change anything.
No, it doesn't.
Change it, but
it was like, it's not helpful because, I'm a starting practice. So if anything, I'm going to feel it even worse than the other practice that are established and ready for, these slumps.
Yeah, but it's interesting that's how the mind works sometimes. So then you mentioned you were switching marketing companies at that time.
Yeah, it was not a good fit for us.
How so?
I feel like they dropped the ball a lot. When I started building this office, one of the biggest things that I kept hearing in all the podcasts that I was listening was marketing, that you have to spend money on marketing, that you have to start marketing months before you open to be ready for that, and 6 months of SEO and all of these other things. So I signed on to the marketing company like August. I signed the contract. I'm like, okay, ready to go. Let's start building the website. They built the website. By October, the website was live. And then I was like, okay, well, where's the marketing piece? And they kept telling me that they couldn't do any marketing until I opened. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense. How am I going to get patients through the door? If you're going to start marketing when I open. Anyways, they literally started my marketing in February when I opened. Yeah. So luckily, I did direct mail with MVP, and that was actually really good for our area. So just with the direct mail, we had like 30 new patients that month. That was very helpful. And I'm so glad I did it, because if I wouldn't have done MVP, I probably wouldn't have had any patients like my first few months, because my marketing didn't really start to kick in until a few months afterwards. We started seeing some results. That was one of the things that I was very adamant about. We have to track where our patients are coming from. So every single patient that comes in, I always ask, how did you hear about us? Then we put it in there so that then I can track, is it from SEO? Is it from the mailers? Is it from word of mouth? And I would search us online. That was probably like July, and I could not find us. Like, we would not pull up. And I kept telling my marketing company, like, we are not pulling up in the search. Like, there's a problem here. This is not working. And they would be like, oh, yeah, no, you're doing great. Your startup is doing great compared to like a lot of other startups. And I'm like, then I don't want to know how those startups are doing, and I don't care. That's not good.
Yeah.
Oh, I had to end that contract early. Luckily, we were able to without any repercussion. Now I signed on with Relevance, and I'm very happy with them.
Relevance.
We have seen a huge difference. I think they belong to Paul Etchison.
So then, if I can ask,
Yeah.
For MVP, how much did you allocate a budget for that? And then for this marketing company, not Relevance, but the previous one,
Yeah.
how much did you allocate there?
We were spending a lot of money on marketing. I mean, those first months, we were doing, I think it was like $3,000 each mailing for MVP. And then the marketing that we were doing on the other side was like $1,500 just in admin fees. And then we were doing Google ads for another $1,500. And then we were doing Facebook and Instagram ads.
Where do you see most of your patients coming from?
Now, a lot of them are coming from Google. But I think it's also because we really pushed for reviews, and that is helping us move up. And like I said, I think Relevance has really done a huge, like, they've made a big impact on our practice. That was another thing. We never saw limited exams, like emergency patients.
Mm-hmm.
With my last company, with this one, I get at least one a day, which makes a huge difference because they usually always need treatment. So that helps as well, kind of satisfy your production if you're not fully booked, but at least you can get these emergency patients. That really makes a big difference.
So then how many new patients are you currently bringing in right now a month?
So this month we've seen 37 new patients.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so what advice would you give your younger self telling them like, hey, about these marketing companies?
I wanted to stand out. I wanted to be different. And I believe this hype about the website and how beautiful it had to be and how different it had to be. And I was gung-ho on this idea that was going to make me stand out, right? Then when people were going to search me, then they were going to find me and they were going to like look at this website and say, oh my God, this is so different from everything I've seen, than the happy smiling faces that I see like in all the other ones or like old websites or whatever. And I realized once I was in it that if people can't find you, if your SEO sucks, it doesn't matter that you have a beautiful website. So I think making sure that you're looking for a company that SEO matters, that they can deliver results and not worry so much about like the design of your website.
So like maybe that's something for the future kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And then right now with Relevance, could I ask like a range or the exact, like what could people expect to pay for that?
Right now, am I allowed to say that? I don't know.
Up to you. Yeah, you could totally say, I mean,
I think it's like $1,500 a month, but they handle everything. And they even do my social media, which my previous company did not do that. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So then a lot of things, you switched your marketing company and then biggest thing I think was like you were vulnerable with your team.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, hey, we're going down kind of a thing, right? And then from that point on, everything changed, right? What didn't change, even though you assumed it would? Maybe perhaps like something specific, a system that you thought the system would work better, but it still hasn't, or maybe personalities, but you're just like, you know what, I can work with that personality still.
Yeah, there are systems that we're still trying to work on, like converting patients, trying to figure out like when patients are out of network is calculating properly their portion. Because like I said, Delta Dental is actually really easy to be able to figure out with the portion. Whatever they pre-estimate, 99% of the time is correct. But other insurances don't really allow for that. And if you ask for a pre-estimate, then you're waiting for some time for that to like get there. And then you're waiting for treatment, delaying treatment, et cetera, et cetera. So we have made a lot of mistakes with other insurances, not knowing how to calculate well and having to write off some of that. I understand that we have on our financial policies, that you're responsible, it's only an estimate and stuff like that. But when you're building a business, you're really relying on word of mouth. And the last thing you want is an angry patient. Now, of course, every now and then there's situations where you just can't do anything about it, right? But I don't want to upset people because we've given them a wrong estimate and now they have like a balance. So now we've had to basically cover that cost. So those things, haven't changed. We're still trying to figure that out. And that's a huge piece because collections is so important, right? It doesn't matter how much you produce if you can't collect what you're producing, right? So the discrepancies in those things we're still trying to figure out. Converting those patients that we can't really get an accurate estimate in a way that doesn't scare them away because that initial visit is going to be a lot of out of pocket. So balancing out, do we charge the out of pocket? Do we just eat the cost because we want to get the patient through the door? So those things we're still trying to figure out.
Interesting. Yeah. Those are really good to kind of like sit down and ponder on to see. But it does take time with that. If you don't mind me asking, right now, collections, what's the goal?
So our goal is 73. Now that's not a breaking even. That's not our break even. That would be crazy.
Yeah. Break even is what then?
So break even is around like 40, but we only have 3 chairs. The way that I see it is that break even will become less and less the more we grow, right? Well, it'll change a little bit, obviously, with your overhead, right? With new staff and stuff like that. But that is our break even.
Gotcha. And collections right now, the goal is 73.
That's kind of what we're aiming for.
Gotcha. So then what are some of the boundaries now? Sounds like your October came and you started opening up a little bit more to the team, right? But what are still some boundaries that you're like, this, I'm not going to let you guys know?
So we go over like our goals every day and what our collection goals are. But, they don't know how much my rent is. They don't even know, like, I don't pay myself.
So you haven't yet then, right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. We are surviving.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't know those type of things.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. But they do know like what they need to do in order to keep their job.
Yeah.
What to you changed in treatment acceptance or treatment presentation from that moment on when they were previously like just asking or now they're doing something completely different?
Absolutely. Like we had to work on verbiage. And I do have a consultant and she does help us, with verbiage. And we've had some training on that, which was crucial. Not letting people just like, really, what is the hesitation, right? Which is so hard to find. Okay, if you don't want to schedule for treatment, what is the hesitation? Is it financial? Because if it's financial, we have options, right? And being more clear about the options. We ended up having to like figure out what we were doing wrong in that sense. I felt like when patients would be like, oh no, I don't want to schedule, or, we wouldn't ask questions. We would just be like, okay, or hey, would you like to schedule? We changed that. We don't say that anymore. Let's get you scheduled for your 6-month checkup. Let's get you on the books, or like for your treatment. If there's hesitations, we ask. Can I ask, is this a, financial issue? And patients will be vulnerable with you too. Like, hey, there's just a lot of money. We can, break it up. We have financing options and showing them the financing options, digging a little deeper to see what the obstacles are. That has made a huge difference. And I feel like the sense of urgency of like, this is the situation and this is what we need to do helped kind of speed that up.
Like letting them know, hey, you have a situation here. It's pretty bad kind of a thing.
No, what I mean is like, I think the team being aware of the situation that we were in and that we needed to get treatment in and that we needed to be able to do these things because we needed to keep the lights on. I think it made everybody more aware of like, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to change, right? Maybe the way that we phrase things or, establishing like this is going on and giving it importance, right? Not just like, oh yeah, you got a cavity here, you can never.
That's such a good team, Cindy, because like people could be like, well, I'm going to go look for another job, right? Kind of a thing, or just do other things, right? They don't see it as their problem, but they took it on as their own.
Like I said, I'm very thankful and I'm very happy with my team right now because they really have. Like they took that and really moved in the direction that I was not expecting. One of my team members was like, hey, I was talking to my mom. Maybe we can do this. Maybe we could drop flyers here, all kinds of things. And, and it just showed that they were interested in like, making this work and that they're happy with where they're at right now. So,
yeah. So then with that part about October, good ownership costs something, but it buys clarity. You know what I mean? Like now people are more clear toward their goal and knowing what they can do. Who's the consultant, if you don't mind me asking?
So right now I have a spear consultant.
For front office or for everything?
For everything.
Okay.
And then we meet with her as a team once a month. And then they have these different things that they want us to like talk about in weekly meetings. Like we have a weekly meeting, just me and my team, and we'll hit certain things. And I think it has definitely helped. I mean, she brings another perspective. Sometimes, she'll say things about like patient experience and, oh, we didn't think about it that way, So it's good. I feel like it has really helped as well.
So then, if an owner right now, or if someone listening is one step behind where you were, what's the one move they should make this week?
You know what? I wish I would have planned my 1 year anniversary better. Because now I'm thinking like there's so much opportunity to bring people in, right? And now I'm realizing I have gotten so behind on that. I feel like it's important to thank our patients and have them involved in the process if they want to be involved. It's also exciting for our team to like say, hey, here we are 1 year. But I mean, obviously, if I look back, I would change so many things.
Yeah, that's a really good one. The planning the 1 year, or you could do it like a 1.5 year. I mean,
yeah, and I'm thinking like, well, probably like do something maybe mid-February.
Yeah, like make like a big celebration. I would totally capitalize on that 1000%. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then final question. Normally we ask previous guests to ask you, the next guest, a question that they have. This is from, let me see, Dr. Sundar Jagadisan. He asked, what do you do to keep your overhead under the magical 60%?
I wish. I do not. I am not there yet. So that was another thing I underestimated. My biggest part of my overhead is salaries right now. Yeah.
What's your percentage, if you don't mind me asking?
I think my staff right now is like probably 30%. My total overhead.
Is it over 60%?
Yeah, it's definitely over 60% right now.
Okay. So to you, what are some things that you plan to do to like, okay, we're going to lower it?
I think it'll be lowered once I can produce more, right? Because right now our collections are still behind. And that's what we need to increase. So get better at collecting is going to make a big difference. And then, our schedule is not even really full to like its maximum potential. So I think that those things, changing that, increasing that, then my overhead is going to be a little lower compared to what our collections are. Yeah.
Nice, Cindy. And then before we wrap up, what's one question you'd like to ask for the next guest to answer?
What is one piece of equipment that you would like to have in your office?
Okay, awesome. Cindy, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, so you can find us at bespokedentalga.com. That's our website. Also, the same handle for our Instagram and our Facebook, Bespoke Dental GA for Georgia.
Awesome. So that's going to be in the show notes below. And Cindy, thank you for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.